Hi, I am going to quickly walk you through an inquiry lesson plan for a 10th grade world geography class. And the title of the lesson is Native Healing in New Societies. It's for a block period, so it is a longer lesson. So to start out, the content focus, students will analyze patterns of global change. The content focus comes directly from the content standard. Here, I've crossed out this area because it isn't necessarily related to new imperialism in these regions, but although these regions are identified in the lesson, just not specifically that time period. Literary focus, analyze a series of events described in the text and determine whether earlier events caused later ones or, make that correction, simply preceded them. So the literary focus comes directly from the Common Core History, Social Science Literary Standard. And then the ELD standard is listed here, and these closely tie together, so those are pretty easy. The kids will be doing a presentation as one of their assessments, and that's identified there in the ELD standard. As for other focus, I more specifically said what they're going to be talking about, since geography is one of those weird subjects where there aren't specific standards for that, so I wanted to identify what they're going to be going over in the lesson. The learning objectives: identify patterns of cultural dispersal, explain interaction of host and donor cultures, and explain the diversity of complementary and alternative, that's this acronym, complementary and alternative medicine practices and the cultures that use them. And then there's an assessment for each of the learning objectives. I like to point out whether it's a formal or informal assessment. So here it's an informal, it's a class discussion, and then I put here what the teacher does during the assessment. So I will be asking the students questions and the class will be responding. This one, it's a group discussion. Teacher walks around to check for understanding. And in this last one, it is a formal assessment, and the kids will be doing a research project and presenting their findings. And then I will be providing oral feedback during the presentations, and then also written feedback on a graded rubric that I will use to grade their presentation and research project. Here are the daily inquiry question, which was provided by the resource that we use to develop the lessons. For the language function, I chose explain, and then I like to bold the language function so that it's really easily seen up here in the learning objectives. I also put it over here in the discourse. Wherever I see explain when it pertains to the language function, I like to put that, to make that bold. For the vocab, there are 3 different kinds of vocab I wanted to make sure and list. So one of them are new words that the kids might not understand at all, like at diaspora. But then there are other words that they might be familiar with, but that have a different meaning when used in the content area, like adoption, absorbed. Adoption, you might think of adopting a child. Absorb, you might think of like a paper towel or sponge absorbing water, and that's just not the way that it's understood within the content. Also medicine. Medicine is, different things can be seen as medicine or not seen as medicine depending on your perspective. And then explain, which is the language function. So misconceptions that are there, and then it gets into engage. So engage is how you want to get the kids into the lesson. I actually picked this lesson plan because it talks about Harry Potter, and I thought that was kind of cute and fun. But it's how they use these real life alternative medicines and plants and things that have actually been used in real life at different parts in history, different times in history, in different parts of the world. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Then you go into explore, and that's when we start explaining and modeling what the students are going to be doing. So I kind of walk through that, and here you'll see I've highlighted out some of the vocab words and how we're going to go over that. Checking for understanding is just kind of a discussion with the class, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. with them. Then it goes into explain, and that's explain is when you really are getting into the work. How are the kids going to explain what they have learned, their findings, explanations, all of that. So it shows their research project, what they're going to be doing, and they're going to be assigned a particular tradition, and then they're to determine what that tradition would do to be able to treat these ailments. So there'll be 6 different groups of kids. Here's the different traditions. Each one of them will be assigned a tradition, and then they're going to research and see what those traditions would do to cure these things. And checking for understanding, I'll walk around the room. It says here that the group will appoint a case manager that will take notes, so I can look at the case manager's notes and check for understanding there. And then extend is when they're going to get up and say what it is that they've learned. They're going to present their findings and explain. So show the class what it was that they find. And then there's some questions there. And then differentiation for accelerated learners. With the research, you can really, for accelerated learners, they can kind of delve into that a little bit deeper. For English language learners, there can be a vocabulary sheet with definitions. They're going to be able to research in their home language or use online or phone translator apps. And then students with disabilities will be placed in groups where there's other students that can kind of assist, and we'll know that by getting to know the students. And then closure, just how to wrap up the lesson, and then the resources that we'll need. So we'll have Chromebooks for researching and textbooks for researching, have a whiteboard that they can use to present their information, and then papers and pens for their note-taking and for using during research. So that is my lesson plan. Thank you.